you reach the second block of team standards, which is the performing stage. So one thing you need to know is that most of the time in which you're going to be managing your team, you will be in the performing stage. So the performing stage is the moment in which you manage your team in order to stick together. So after building, to keep the things that you did on building alive, and the development and the team purpose and the things that unites you alive, but also to make sure that you're having a very clear routine to achieve your goals, to deliver everything you need to deliver as a team. So the doubts that our young Maurizio has in this moment, and they're going to try to solve, are: how should my routine with my team be like? So in terms of meetings, in terms of one-to-ones, what should be weekly, what should be monthly? We're going to talk about this thing. Maquindi, so after building, what are the things that need to happen, so what's next? And then how to make sure that all the amazing things that we did on building will not die. So the team plan, the team purpose, the team development plan, so the things we want to become as a team, how to make sure that you as a team leader, you're actually paying attention on these things and having moments and times in which you will be working on that. So that in the routine and in the moments in which you're trying to conciliate Isaac with university and everything, these things actually don't die. So the performing block is basically about this. So how can we have a very clear routine as a team and achieve everything that we want to achieve? So the steps that you're going to talk about when talking about performing, the first one is what are the things that you need to do in order to elevate the results of your team. So there are things that you as a team leader you can do to actually directly elevate the results of your team. Then, how do you track performance? How do you track them in the best way possible for them to achieve the best results and achieve their goals? And then, what are the touch points that you need to do in order to create this structure of support system for your team to perform the best way? So this third block is very practical in terms of touch points. So let's start. So the first one is the practical learning. So after your members went through the academies, after you passed to them the competencies and learnings that they need to know, they need to be to get the practical learning. So if I'm a member of marketing, and after I pass through the marketing academy, after my team leader passed me all the knowledge and everything, I just need to go and do a clash out. I need to go and do a sales points. And it's not just randomly go and do, it's having you near to give feedbacks, to make sure that they are improving every time. So in the first things that your members are going to do, one very, very important tip is let them do it. So don't be the kind of team leader that don't trust or like wants them to follow you and stuff. Just let them do it, but be sure that you're there to give feedbacks and be very honest in terms of the feedbacks, because they will listen a lot to you. But then make sure that you're giving them resources to improve every time. That's the first one, and it's very fundamental. The second one is the team working times. So it's usually not a thing that we think naturally, but it's very, very important that there is a moment in your week in which you're not doing meetings, you're not actually following a guideline or anything, you're just working together. So in these moments, you can take to understand the working style of your members. So are they people that they work talking and they produce a lot when you're talking and interacting, or are they people that need to focus in silent in a corner to develop the things they need to develop? So what is their working style? Understand how do they relate to the stakeholders. So if you go, if you are having a working time and then one of your members is calling an EP or is calling a school, so how do they relate to the stakeholders? How do they sell Isaac? The best way of understanding this is if you are there doing these things with him. And also show that you trust them. So when you're working together, show that you trust them to call schools, to deal with stakeholders, to do all of the things that they need to do. Because once they are seeing that you're there and you're supporting them, they will feel much more empowered to do everything they need to do. And then the third one is team incentive systems. So when we talk about incentive systems in Isaac, we usually think about this huge R&R system that has a lot of topics and criteria and stuff. You can create a very simple R&R inside your team. So you can connect the R&R to your team identity. So if you are like superheroes, you can create like a very small challenge inside your team that has something to do with that. Just make sure to make it simple and show that you care about it. So if it's something that you're trying to engage them on doing, and then they see that you forgot in the next team meeting, you forgot to even mention about the R&R and the team incentive system, they will not for sure be engaged on that. So if it's something that is important to you, make sure that you show them that this is important to you and you are following up on this. So it can be very simple, it can be very fast, but it's also very powerful for you to push some behaviors. And this is the results elevation block. After that, we go to the performance tracking. So what are the things that you can do in order to make sure that your team is achieving their goals? First one is accountability system. And for that, I want to ask you a very simple question. What is the thing that you look to first when you are changing the channels and then you suddenly stop in a football match? For sure is the scoreboard. So for sure you want to know who is winning, by how, what is the time frame of the match, so how much time are we missing to end the thing. So it's very, very important, and it's totally your responsibility to make sure that your members have a spreadsheet, tool, whatever that they need to understand, okay, so we have our plans, we have our battles and measurements, so where can I go? And I can click and I can have a very clear look of where are we right now. So if your main measure is approvals, where can me as a member go and check how many approvals are we planning for each month and how many did we achieve, so that I can get a very cool sense of where are we right now. It needs to be very simple. Second one is the individual tracking meetings, which is very simple, which is a meeting that you have periodically with your team, with your members individually, and then you're tracking how are they achieving their goals and what are the things that you can do as a team leader to help them get there. Finally, team weekly, monthly, and quarter reviews. So it's very important that you guys as a team, you get together periodically in order to discuss things that matter for that time frame. So here you have some topics and some tips on what do you need to review weekly, monthly, and quarterly. Make sure these reviews are actually being followed, because this is the most important touch point to make sure that you're having a routine. So every month your team is looking back and seeing what are the things that they need to do and they didn't do, and what are the things that they actually achieved. And then quarterly, even more. So you can check what needs to be reviewed and then implement this also. And then we go to the support system. So what are the very practical touch points that you need to deliver as a team leader, and what is the cadence that you need to deliver them. So the first one is lead spaces. So it's very important that you stop at some moments and then you assess again how are you in the leadership qualities. So it's not just doing an LDA in the beginning and in the end, but it's you as a team leader to hosting these spaces that can be very simple. So usually these things are simpler than we think, and they can also assess us on how are we developing ourselves. So in a lot of issues in our Isaac lives, sometimes a space like this can be the game changer, can be the tipping point for your team to move to another direction. So if your team is having issues in trusting each other, if your team is having issues in empowering other people or in dealing with other customers, what is the kind of space that you can host with them? And you can also ask your MCVP for inputs on how to run this space and stuff. And then after this space, your team will be reflecting on other things, they will be doing other stuff and behaving in another way. So these things can be very powerful, and we really suggest it to be quarterly. So to host a space like this every quarter with your team. Then you go to the team meetings. So this is for sure the most frequent touch point that you will have with your teams, and this is the weekly moment you need to sit together, review what are the things that need to happen by that day and what are the things that need to happen from that meeting until the next meeting. So also, as you probably know, we follow this system of account review plan in our team meetings. In all of our team meetings, from MC level, from EB level, from team leader level, we need to follow this because it's the most effective way that we chose as Isaac in Italy to work in our meetings. There is a video on this link that you're seeing on the bottom, in which you can see another video of me speaking about team meetings and how can you run a very cool team meeting working on accounting, reviewing, and planning the next steps. For sure, meetings need to happen weekly so that every week your team has a touch point together. So make sure that you're following the 40X mode. Then your one-to-ones. So it's very, very, very important that you have a routine of monthly meeting with your individually with your members in order to assess their personal development plan. So how much are they achieving of their goals and how much are they working for the development that they need to do. how do I run a one-to-one? How do I make sure these spaces are happening? You also can go to this link that is there and then go to the video in which I explain it a little bit better. Then finally, team days. So team days are spaces that usually happen quarterly, and it's a moment in which your team can just stop for a little bit and then have fun together as a team. So usually we underestimate these kind of spaces. We think that they are not important because we're not working and talking about functional stuff, but they are equally powerful when you're talking about a team experience, and mainly that we are youth people that are working voluntarily for Isaac, and these spaces can make us take the experience in a much lighter way. So make sure that you're hosting these spaces. They can be very simple, but they can be an off moment in which your team is actually having fun together. And finally, feedback spaces. So usually feedback in companies in general, in life, they are something that some people are a little bit scared of. It's very important that you prepare your team for receiving and giving feedbacks. And for that, we have 6 tips on how do you, or things that you need to follow in order to give feedbacks in a good way. So being empathetic, make the feedback light, make the feedback very specific, don't be too broad. Make sure that you're also recognizing and giving positive feedbacks. Make sure that the feedback is instantaneous, that you don't wait like 3 months in order to talk about something that is bothering you at that moment. And then they are actionable, so that the feedback is not something that the person is going to listen and then not be able to do anything. You need to be able to improve and do something on that feedback. So make sure to prepare your team for that. Make sure that you also host these spaces, and we suggest it to be bi-monthly, so every 2 months, so that you can do this kind of spaces. You will end up doing this 3 times inside your term as a team leader. And that's it. So when we're talking about performing again, these are the touch points that you need to do. So weekly, team meetings. Monthly, having a one-to-one and a monthly review. Bi-monthly, feedback space, and quarterly, so every 3 months, having a lead space, having a quarter review, and having a team days with your team. Basically this. Again, if you have any doubts, I'm very available to talk to you about them. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see each other in the closing block.